Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Stellar Cycles podcast, your hot girl database for all the things that we wish we were taught but get to learn together now. Everything pertaining to your femininity, your cycle and female wellness, and your walk in life as a woman. I'm your host, Alina, and today we are going to be talking about female sexuality, sex education, and sexual wellness for women. The goal of today's episode is to help debunk some of the popular myths surrounding sex, learn how to improve our communication and get our needs met, understand more about sexual traumas and how they shape lives, and so much more with a professional in the field, Taylor Stafford. After you listen to this episode, you'll leave equipped to make better decisions in your sex life, ask for what you need, and even some information on how to approach these conversations if and when you do have children. First off, some current updates. I'm in my menstrual phase. I'm on day 3 of my period, and I'll be honest with you guys, it wasn't the greatest report card this month. It just wasn't. I did end up having to take Tylenol both first and second day, and I was bleeding a little bit more than usual, but that just goes to show that I could have been doing some things better during my whole cycle to help prepare me for this, and I definitely know that I was off my game with supplements and all of my little regimens and rituals that I do, and well, there goes, you know what I mean? But on day 3, I'm definitely feeling back to normal, and I know tomorrow I'll be ready to be back in the gym, lifting weights, because we know that shortly after our period, our muscles are in the most prime to regrow and repair themselves. Another thing too is we have been refurnishing our place, so we have a lot of things moving in and out of the house. It just doesn't feel finished. There's random things that I'm getting sold on Facebook Marketplace. There's new things being shipped in, just kind of sticking around in boxes because our interior designer just kind of wants to come and do everything all at the same time when everything has all arrived. So kind of living in the limbo of that right now, but it's not too bad. I know the result is going to be absolutely beautiful. This weekend, we're having some friends come into town. We are going to be going to the 70s event. So me and Sam have gotten our costumes and we're just super excited for this. I've never been to any sort of 70s disco type of thing, but who knows, you know, this is the year of me doing things that I wouldn't normally do. And finally, I would say like the coolest thing that I've been up to is 5 p.m. play dates with Nova and the rest of her friends. So we have a little puppy group in our building. So we get together after our work day is done around 5 or 6 p.m. and we honestly just talk like parents while our kids play and just go off the walls and rip apart toys. And they really need it because we are busy during the day. So it's nice to get them together and get their energy out. It's pretty great to become friends with these people, and we even went on a Thai food run the other night together. It's things like that, you know, that make life fun and interesting. Now, we will get into this episode with Taylor Stafford. Today, I brought on to Stellar Cycles my friend Taylor Stafford. Like most amazing people in my life, I met her through book club. How many book clubs ago? Like a couple months ago? Yes, and Taylor really stood out to me because she is a doctor of nursing practice student. She is a soon-to-be medical sexologist, sex educator, sex researcher, and also the founder and president of the Women Against Taboo Foundation.
Got it.
Yeah, everyone, welcome to the show, Ms. Taylor Stafford.
Thank you so much for having me, Elena. I'm so excited.
Yes,
I met so many great people through book club, and so it's great to just connect with everyone. Everyone's so cool and fascinating.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Welcome to the show. We are excited to have you on. I thought it would be a good idea to have Taylor on to talk to us about women's sexuality in particular, share with us the things she's been studying, because even though the conversation has opened up a lot more over the past 5 to 10 years, I still think it's a taboo topic, wouldn't you say?
I didn't really get to start talking to women in clinic, especially after my seminars. You really start to realize not everyone is very open about it. It seems like everyone is, but no, it's still
interesting. To start things off, I know we're going to be talking about sex a lot during this conversation, but first I like to ask all my guests, what was your experience getting your period for the first time? Were you prepared? Were you not prepared? How did that go for you?
Honestly, I didn't really care. My mom was very open about sex. And so I knew that my period was coming way before it was coming. I never even used a pad. The minute I got my period, I used a tampon. I just was very comfortable with it right before I graduated middle school.
Yeah. So you were probably feeling very grown up.
Yeah, I remember it was when I met him at the park by our house. And I got my period and my mom was involved. And I was like, Mom, I just got my period. I need to go meet like blah, blah, blah at the park. And she's like, okay, Mom, I'm going to work. Like there's tampons or pads in there. I was like, I'm not wearing a pad. And so I put a tampon on and walked to the park to meet my friend.
Wow. Big girl. Why were you so against pads?
I just thought they were uncomfortable.
Okay. Yeah.
I was like, how do you wear that with a thong?
Yeah. Literally, good question. My very first experience with the pad was when I was just dinking around in my mom's bathroom and I found pads. I unstuck it and I literally just stuck it to the outside of my body. And I was like, how is this supposed to work? Yeah. So I feel it. They do look very uncomfortable, but
I just know like it looks messy. I don't want to have to deal with it.
Yeah, 100%. So that sounds like a lot of fun for you. And that's awesome that your mom was open about it and prepared you for that.
She was open about everything. We knew all of our body part, all their actual names were. I remember like getting in trouble and I think I was, and I don't know, let's just say like kindergarten because I said the word penis not in like a weird way. I was like, that is a penis.
Yeah.
And they told my mom, you know, she's saying appropriate things and I'm like, what? Like, what's she saying? And they're like, well, she called it a penis. You know, you're 5 years old. You just say things and like, that is what it's called. And they just said it was inappropriate. So I got my mom like, why that's inappropriate? Because she explained it to us through a whole body book, starting with your cardiovascular system and what your heart does and like all the things, you know? And so I just figured your penis or your vagina or your vulva or whatever was just Freldo. Like, why is that inappropriate? I didn't get it. And so my mom had to like explain to me about society and just the whole thing about why it's inappropriate.
Totally. And I also think it's some that your mom took it upon herself. She didn't just give you guys the book. That's a step in the right direction for sure. For parents, that's much better than not acknowledging it at all. But I also think it's great that she, as your mom, went about it to read the book herself, probably, and then read it with you guys, because then she was the authority in your family on that topic.
She actually gave us like an adult body book. We looked everywhere. I mean, this was in like, 2000. I was born in 85. So it's got to be, I think this was before kindergarten that she was explaining this to us. And so we're talking in late 1990s. And she said, I couldn't find a children's book that even talked about reproduction, not even just like penis, vagina, sex, like reproduction. And so she just got a normal, like almost medical textbook, not a textbook, but like an anatomy book, not for kids at all. And so that's what she used because she couldn't find it anywhere. You still really can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So I wanted to ask you, when you were just starting out your menstrual journey, were you noticing that you had any bad symptoms or was it pretty much smooth sailing for you?
No, it was terrible. So I've been on birth control since I was 15 and I wasn't even having sex yet. The reason why I went on is because my period was so heavy that I was becoming anemic and I bled through a tampon and a pad 3 days in a row at school. And so my mom had to pick me up 3 days in a row. This was in high school. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to go to school and I literally was not even close to being sexually, well, maybe I was now thinking about it. But at the time, I didn't think I was close to being sexually active, but I was like, I have to figure this out. And so my mom took me to a gynecologist and I immediately went on birth control and everything was fine.
Okay.
So, I tried 3 different birth controls, of course. Like if you get the first one on the first try, lucky you. But yeah, it was definitely rough, but it was mostly just like how heavy my period was.
And are you still on birth control now?
I actually just got off hormonal birth control for the first time, literally since I was 15. And that was about 3 months ago.
Okay. And how was that for you?
Everything is still kind of evening out, I think. But I've gone through everything, like the pills. I've gone through the next one on the arm implant. I've gone through the IUD. And the IUD was just giving me so much uterine pain. My abdominal pain was so bad. And it did an ultrasound, did everything, all the testing. And it's like, this shouldn't be causing it. So I get it out. Haven't got it since.
Okay.
So, it's like, yeah, it might not seem like there's literature or research to support that. But I mean, if you just think about it, you have something in your uterus that could be irritating it. I mean, it's just like anything else.
100%. A big part of ultrasound was checking the placement of an IUD.
Yep.
And a lot of the time it was not in the right place because of course, your uterus, which is an organ, it's going to notice that there's a foreign body in there.
Exactly.
Whether or not it's hormonal or non-hormonal or copper, but what happens is your uterus starts pushing it around to try to get it out. And that's what causes all that discomfort.
Yeah. And mine was in place. Everything looked good. I looked at the ultrasound myself and it was great for the first year. And then after probably 8 months, it was severe pain. But everyone is so different.
Yes, absolutely.
You almost can't even ask another woman how you're going to respond to it because you have no idea. Everyone is so different. So I have like a big fear of getting pregnant. Always have. My cousins had babies very early and their life has been very, very difficult because of it. And so I am very scared to get pregnant. I thought it was going to really affect my sex life. And now I'm just like, got plan B on deck. Use a condom and I feel okay,
It doesn't really ruin your life to have to do things that way and not have to rely on birth control. You have to be a little more aware of your cycles.
Exactly. So we'll see. It's only 3 months, but we'll see how it goes.
Hopefully it really works out for you. So give us some background on what brought you to what you're currently doing now.
Yeah. So I think growing up, my mom talking about things so openly and me being kind of confused about society. And I just didn't understand why it was such a big deal. And then I knew that I wanted to be a nurse forever. I actually had a staph infection in my spinal column when I was 11. And so very scary. So I was in the pediatric system a lot. And so I really wanted to work with vulnerable pediatric populations. So I thought that was pediatric oncology. That was kind of what I wanted. Then I got to college, undergrad, and I really started getting into mental health and realizing that the most vulnerable populations are not oncology pediatric patients. And of course, pediatric oncology, horrible thing, right? I'm not minimizing that at all, but they get a lot of support. It's less than 1% of pediatrics with cancer die. It's 1 to 3.
Is that what oncology means?
Yeah, cancer patient. And so then I really realized that these kids are in foster care systems. Some of them are trafficked. A lot of them are abused. And then no one cares about them. There's no money into it. And so I really was kind of attracted to that. And then in undergrad, I started working at a gynecologist's office and they had a sex therapist. So she's Sherry Aiken. She's a gynecology NP and she's a sex therapist. And she has been my mentor ever since. She's amazing. I shadowed her for 3 years and I just loved the field. And so I got into anti-trafficking programs there in Reno. I went to University of Nevada. Trafficking is a big problem there. So I got to do the fun sex therapy stuff, like talk to couples about mismatched desire or adultery or, whatever. And then I got to do more of the serious anti-trafficking, sex trafficking side of things. So that's kind of how I got into it. And it's evolved since, but
more of like the recovery and stuff like that.
For trafficking?
Yeah.
I was volunteering for 2 organizations that they do recovery, but they identify kids that are being sex trafficked and get them out of it.
Okay.
And then get them into systems.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it was a pretty intense work.
Wow. I didn't even know a field like that existed.
Yeah. Anything you can imagine in the anti-trafficking world, there's so much to it. It's just getting worse and worse. And it's a very, very, very mentally taxing field. It's very challenging. And realizing in my nursing experience, I did pediatric psychiatry. And so a lot of those kids were sex trafficked, sexually abused. So I got to work with the trauma of pediatrics from that. And honestly, I burnt out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I was so gung-ho, like, I could do this for life. And then you're like, this is sick.
Yeah, it's so much emotional energy to you, I bet. And having to know all of those things.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really
It was difficult. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So today our main topic is women and sex, which is everything probably that you are eating, breathing, living.
Yeah.
I just wanted to start off with, what would you say is important for us to know about female sexuality?
So that's a loaded question. Important. Let's see. I think that one of the biggest things is all the things that we think that we have been told are normal that are not normal. All the taboos. I think one of the biggest things that we see with the older population is sex shouldn't hurt.
So the pelvic floor dysfunction of it all, right?
Sex shouldn't hurt unless you're actively doing some kind of BDSM or something like that. It's a little bit different, right? But sex shouldn't hurt and doesn't have to hurt. And so I think that's one. Two is the way most women, not all, experience desire. When we talk about desire, we use the word desire in medicine and in the sexology field, but on the streets, we say sex drive, libido.
Okay.
But we really call it desire. And so thinking that our desire should be similar to men's, I think is a big misconception. We have spontaneous desire, which is you see a tit, you're horny. Something like that, right? A lot of it's very visual. And so men are very visual. So they can just think of a thought or see something they think is attractive, or they brush their penis up against something and now they're horny, right? A lot of women aren't like that. Some are, and it changes, as we change in life. But responsive desire is how most women experience their desire. So it's been a really tricky conversation, I think, to have, because basically you have to start doing something in sex.
Okay.
But with that information, people, husbands, whatever, partners are like, well, let's just start having sex. And they misuse the information to be a predator, right?
Yeah.
Let's just start having sex, even though it doesn't feel good. So a lot of that responsive desire is what we talk about. I say foreplay starts after the last orgasm. And that is how you are after sex, right? Like some teenagers would tell me, I just feel so weird because we just have sex and then they just start playing Xbox.
Yeah.
So that doesn't want to make me have sex with you again.
Yeah. How they treat you afterwards is really important too.
So not even just directly after sex, but how you're treated throughout the day until you have sex the next time. We see this a lot with couples who just had a baby. This is a really, really hard time for sex life and for intimacy with couples. And so we see people in clinic a lot at this time. And let's just say both people are working, whether that's taking care of the home or you're getting paid to work at their job. Everyone's working. Some people are getting paid, some people aren't. Doesn't mean that the work is any less taxing, and relationships are not just 50-50 all the time. It's give and take. But let's just say you have a kid, woman's still on maternity leave, you get home and the other partner's been at work all day. And he has a spontaneous desire. The one I hear most from women is like their d***'s hard and you're doing dishes or something. They just start putting their penis into your back and they're like,
wait, that's so caveman.
Pissing me off.
Do people's husbands really do that? That's so
yes. It's like that is the
they don't understand that they have to really work their woman up.
Yes. And so
men, for anyone having to deal with
that.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Like men come in and they're like, I keep trying to have sex with her. I keep trying. And I'm like, but that's where you're going wrong. What does she need to feel supported? One, she's stressed out for whatever reason. Stressed, worst hormone ever for sex. So what does she need to be done to complete her day to feel...
So that you can make time for this.
Yes. So you can make time so she can feel supported, because at the same time, yeah, he might be coming home from work, but you've been doing a bunch of crap too. Whatever. Life gets hard. And so how can we do this together? What do we need for this household right now, for this baby right now, for us right now? And really making it a cohesive environment, so much more hot than putting your in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they'll be like, but that's me initiating it, right? But I heard this one quote one time, and don't remember who said it. But they said, foreplay is actually everything that you do before you get in bed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's the whole picture. Really, it is.
The dynamic between the two people, even when sex is directly on the table.
Right. And I call it non-sexual sexual touches. Probably should think of a better word for it, but I kind of like saying it fast. Non-sexual sexual touches. But just throughout the day, right? Getting used to touching each other in kind of a sexual way, but not leading to sex. Mm-hmm. So you don't think every single time your partner touches you, oh, crap, now he wants to have sex, because it becomes a negative thing.
Negative association.
Yeah. Like increase intimacy, not when you're just having sex. Mm-hmm. And so that's actually what we work on when couples come in and they haven't had sex for 10 years. We start with, do you guys hold hands? Do you ever touch a leg? Anything to kind of redate your partner again.
Yes. Non-sexual forms of touching are so important.
So important.
Even with your friends. We hug our friends. Yes. Sometimes we kiss them on the cheek.
Yes. Something
when I see my friends, I always give a kiss on the cheek.
Yeah.
Because that sort of touch, it's really important, not only to our mental health, but also our human survival.
Yeah. I mean, even think think about babies, right? We do skin to skin in the NICU, and it's like all the other partners who didn't just have the baby have their shirts off in the NICU, right? As a nurse, I would go up there. This is how I would spend my breaks. Going up to the NICU, you're literally at my place of work with my shirt off and my bra holding a baby. And that's just how it is. It's not a weird thing, right? So even from the very minute that we come out of the womb, we need physical touch. So it really bonds you, called oxytocin, bonding hormone. And so all those other things are really important before you even get in the bedroom.
Yeah. So before we move on to the next question, I do want to ask you, how would you advise women to communicate to, let's say if they do have a male partner? Obviously different story when you have a female partner, but when they do have this male partner, maybe they're in the situation where they feel like you just said he's just coming in hot and expecting it to happen. What's a good way of telling him that you want something else?
I think that it really depends. I think that woman knows their partner better than anyone else. And so some men, you can just tell them straight up and they will take it well. If there's any kind of insecurity or confidence issue or anything like that, you'll know. You as a partner will know and how you have to speak to them. But I think that even just starting the conversation is the important part, like motivational interviewing. So like, hey, I feel this when you this. So like, I feel objectified when you come home from work and immediately put your penis in my back, since we're going to go with this example today, and really opening them up and making it sexy, right? It would be really sexy if you did blank, whatever you wanted them to say or to do. But again, it doesn't always happen like that, depending on the personality, right? So that can be very attacking to men. Honestly, any of these conversations can. So if you really feel like you're unable to have the conversation, I would really encourage you to reach out to a therapist, a sex therapist, because also if you're unable to tell your partner those things, there's probably other things going on.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I would say my thought is we forget often that men aren't communication creatures like us women. So sometimes talking the man to death about the problem usually isn't the way to go and causes them to shut down, I would assume. So I think a lot of these things can be said in a short, concise way that they as men can appreciate and understand.
Yeah. And going back to how we change behavior, there's multiple ways on how we change behavior, but the number one way to change behavior is positive reinforcement across the board. And so when little things, right? So when he does something that you like, encourage the out of it, even if it was not exactly what you want, but it's like, okay, you see the effort, you see anything, just be like, oh, it was so blank when you're like, I loved when you did that. Or even in the bedroom as well. I do highs and lows with my sexual partners, highs of like, this is my favorite part of sex, because then you really start to get to know each other. Like, okay, that was fun. Like she liked that or he liked that. Right. And then lows, you're not on the person, but it might be like, I could not concentrate because the TV was on. Yeah. Right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever it is.
Something that's easy to fix for the next time.
Yeah.
It's not putting them down.
Right. Exactly. And so, focusing on the highs. So positive reinforcement. Always remember that.
Yeah. Well, along with, I'm sure, communication being one of these things, but what would you say would be some of the biggest obstacles for women when it comes to sex, even in this modern age, even though things are much different now?
Yeah, I still feel like just because we're accepting women's sexuality more and talking about women with sex, sexual pleasure with women, doesn't mean that those old cultural beliefs, they're not still ingrained in us. They are. Even myself, I have been in this field for a long time and I'm learning every single day. Sometimes it's hard for me to say what I want in bed because I subconsciously have been taught through culture that sex is about him and sex means intercourse. And even though intercourse is not how I'm going to get off, sometimes it's like being able to advocate for yourself or feeling worthy, or that your vagina doesn't have to look a certain way, or all these things. And so I feel like a lot of it is societal pressure, that just because we've come far doesn't mean that we're not internalizing all those things. And I think that desire in general is really difficult. Low desire is the number one reason why medical sexologists see women, or mismatched desire. So maybe they have a quote unquote normal level of desire, but their partner has a way higher. And so that creates tension within the relationship. I think really starting to understand your desire, how it's changed over time, maybe with your cycle, maybe with your medications, life events, understanding that honestly, one of the biggest things I think is everyone thinks that everyone's having sex 3 days a week. I don't know what this 3 number is, but 3 is like everywhere. It's been everywhere. And sometimes you have a baby or someone dies and you won't have sex for a couple months. And that is normal. So people will come in all frustrated and it's like, it changes. And then sometimes you'll have a situation where you're having sex 5 times a week.
Yeah.
It's not all consistent.
It's definitely an up and down. Would you say that the sex part of our culture, the hookup culture, the TV shows and movies and porn that people are shown, that people have this expectation that everyone is just always having sex. And if you're not, then you're falling behind or something's wrong with your relationship.
Yeah. Or one of my favorite ones that I've been seeing a lot of is single people enjoy sex and have more sex than couples. That's actually not true at all. Married couples report higher, all different relationships, right? Gay, lesbian, men, women, whatever, report higher level of sexual satisfaction and having more sex more often. And so people have a very big misconception about marriage or whatever.
So glad you highlighted that.
Yeah.
I think how you said with your partner, you'll actually have a mini debrief after. And that actually allows you to get to know and have a better sexual experience every single time if you're kind of keeping it within the same relationship. Right. Whereas we're kind of led to believe that, no, single people go out and have more fun. The more people that you have sex with, the better. But no, you're almost starting over with each one. Each one was you're starting from ground zero. Yeah. There's no way that can be amazing.
Right.
All the time.
And people have sex for different reasons. When I speak at the colleges, I'm speaking to undergraduate students. A lot of them aren't in relationships and they're worried about orgasm or whatever. And I'm like, but maybe orgasm is not going to be the goal of this sexual experience, right? It's not always the goal, just like men don't always ejaculate every single time they have sex. And so there's sex for different reasons, but I think we have to manage our expectations about what we're getting out of this sexual experience because you're not going to get it all in every single sexual encounter, honestly.
100%. That's fine.
Right.
So that does lead me to the next question. And you're doing really good segues.
Okay.
The next question for you is, how would you say, based on your studies, how do women choose their partners, sexual partners? How do we consciously choose them? How do we subconsciously choose them?
I feel like this is talked about a lot with birth control, about how you're attracted to different people. And honestly, it is so different for every single person. What you're looking for, what your strengths are, what you find attractive.
Your genetic makeup.
I mean, I've seen studies that say we're attracted to the most genetically different people than we are because evolution. You want to get different strengths and
avoid mutation.
Yes. Yeah. Right. But then people are dating people that look like their siblings. So it's so broad. And there's also so many other factors involved with sex. Like, what are you looking for in a relationship right now? Whose insecurities are playing off of who? What's going to make you feel comfortable? And I just feel like you really have to figure it out for yourself. And honestly, it's going to change even for yourself.
Yeah.
Think about in the past life stages. And I haven't really noticed any differences in who I'm attracted to with being off birth control. Have you ever?
Yes.
You have? Okay.
Completely. I was with the most feminine guy in the world when I was on birth control. Even more feminine than me. It was crazy. I hated it, but I didn't know what was wrong. You know what I mean? Because I was just so I was like, why am I so uncomfortable in this relationship? Oh, it's because he's literally making me act like a man.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Are you more dominant in your...
I am generally even off birth control.
Okay.
Definitely.
Like in your life in general too?
Just being an older sister, and just having to take the lead in a lot of situations. But yeah, I was just curious to know your experience because you worked on it for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Off of it.
And, it takes months to stabilize. So we'll see coming up here. But I also feel like for me, I feel like I'm very dominant in my regular life, just with my career and everything. And with men in sex, I'm very submissive. But when I have sex with women, I'm usually more dominant. And so it really kind of I think it just kind of depends.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. So I also wanted to ask you this. Can you debunk this myth for us?
Okay.
Is sex really much more intimate for women than it is for men?
So yes and no. Every person at any stage can have sex and not have an intimate attachment. But men also can be super intimate in their relationships as well. And that works for them. So I would say based on the way hormones work in our sexual response cycle, which is a whole nother topic, but technically yes, but it's more about your type of desire.
What you're trying to get out of the sexual encounter.
Yes. Are you spontaneous desire? So you can just see things, right? And that might be a little bit less connection, but it also could not be.
Yeah.
So
I could see that.
It really is different. And I think, yeah, you would say the majority of, I think evolutionary wise, yes, because I also think that's why it's the way women orgasm and their sexual response is different, because we're basically saying, show me you can take care of me. Going back to caveman days, right? Show me you can actually take care of me in all different ways. Show me that you can give me pleasure, whereas men are spreading their seed.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it like that, yes, it kind of does make sense. So I think it's different for every person. And I know that's an annoying answer, but it really is.
No, that's a good answer.
It really is.
What would you have to say for us regarding awareness around STIs and sexual health? Is it a much bigger problem than we think? Is it not as big of a problem as we think? What should people be doing?
Are there any STIs you're specifically asking about, or just in general?
Just in general. I had a friend who's going through a HPV diagnosis right now, and she's obviously like, it sucks, but she's going into a lot of research about it. And she's just like, Alina, I didn't know how common this was. We really need to debunk the fact that it makes you dirty or whatever, because 90% of people or something like that?
Well, 98% of men have it.
Oh, great. Lovely. And they're silent carriers, right?
Yeah, they don't. Yes, they don't. So HPV is different than the rest of them because of mostly strands 16 and 18 of HPV can cause very deadly cervical cancer. So, and the way the Gardasil vaccine works, we're seeing a lot less HPV. You can start getting it at age 9 now. I probably got it in middle school when it came out or something, because I had to still wait in the waiting room after and make sure I didn't pass out like I do with all the vaccines, right?
Okay.
But if you get that vaccine, things are mutating, but it covers so many strains.
Okay.
Your rate for cervical cancer just drops. The problem with the vaccine is if you don't get it as a kid, and you are already exposed to HPV. So we are exposed to HPV all the time.
Okay.
And this is why we actually went from doing pap smears every year in 20s to every 3 years, because we're testing positive for a lot of HPV and it goes away. So that's why we've changed that over the years. But if you are exposed to HPV, AKA you are, whether you're sexually active first, right? Exposed to HPV, usually through a penis because they all have it, or through rape, the vaccine is way less likely to work. People are like, well, my 9-year-old, I don't want to get my 9-year-old vaccinated. And it's kind of hard to talk to them about
The importance of it.
yeah. How do you tell parents it's important, because what if your child is molested? And that's not things people want to think about, but it happens, you know? And so we're not seeing this in a lot of the younger population with HPV specifically. HIV is doing well. We're doing great with antivirals with HIV. The technology for it is honestly incredible, but herpes, guys, and this is actually something I always talk to women about in my seminars, because it seems to impact women more than men, but I do see it impacting men. There are some things that can happen if herpes are untreated, but they're very rare. Herpes won't kill you, and it's basically similar to the chickenpox vaccine or shingles. So we don't have a vaccine for it. There's no vaccine. Why would we put money into something that's not going to kill us? And so the number keeps changing, but basically in the next 20, 30 years, pretty much almost the entire population is going to have a type of herpes. STIs in general, but herpes, because you can't get rid of it, really affects people's mental state after. Of course, when you get it, you're going to go through a grief cycle, just like you are anything that you get a diagnosis or whatever. You go through a little grief cycle.
And something that's easily cleared up with antibiotics.
Yes, like chlamydia, gonorrhea, all the things, right? But it becomes a problem when it's been 3-5 years and your self-esteem is still shot. You still feel like you can't be sexually active, major depression, anxiety, and actually that stigma increases your risk of having a herpes breakout. So you're actually breaking out more
Because of all the stress.
Yes. We're getting better now. I think from what I'm hearing when I talk to women, but no one knows that you can take antivirals every day and they are so freaking effective. So effective.
Yes.
But doctors never offered this to people, and it's your choice. If you want to take it, great. If you don't want to take it, great. Know that it's an option. And so really, I actually am going to go into herpes research, because I almost did it for my graduate research on mental health and really educating women, because I'm seeing women so suicidal, right? because they feel dirty and all the things. And it's so funny because I think as you get older, I hear this from women all the time. As you get older, if you disclose to your new partner or whatever that you are positive for herpes or whatever, and they're like, oh, me too. Same with HPV with the older generation. You start hearing, oh, I have HPV. Oh, I have HPV.
Well, hopefully there's better solutions and it becomes more available to people, because nobody should feel like they want to lose their life because they're so afraid of feeling rejected over something like that.
Yes. So sad, especially something that's, we can treat it now, which is great, you know.
And can live with it for stretches of time without any sort of interference.
Yeah, especially if it's herpes type 1, herpes type 2. I mean, it's the whole thing. So there's just options out there, and I really want women to know that. So if your doctor has not offered you those options, maybe either bring it up to your doctor or go find a doctor that will give you those options to maybe just decide if you want to. It's okay if you don't also. You know?
Exactly. So heading into a little more sensitive territory here, what are the steps that people can take to start to heal themselves from sexual trauma?
Yeah, sexual trauma is just devastating, honestly, because it impacts your sex life, especially if sexual trauma as a child impacts every aspect of your life. I mean, one of my favorite statistics, LOL, but 80% of women who are morbidly obese were raped as a child. And so it manifests in so many different ways.
Would you say putting on all that extra weight almost helps them feel like protecting themselves? Like, then nobody will get close to me type of thing?
Subconsciously, of course. Also, the amount of stress. Stress is cortisol. It's building all of that inflammation. So it makes it harder for you to process glucose. Also, your serotonin is low. When our serotonin is really low, we're going to want to eat more. Eating is the fastest way to increase our dopamine. So we're going to eat worse, and it's a cycle, and you almost can't control it. So really healing from any trauma, but this specifically, we see the worst comorbidities with sexual trauma. I think it's individualized per person. I think a lot of it comes from, how does your family perceive what happened to you? What were you taught about this growing up?
Was it even acknowledged?
Was it acknowledged, right? I mean, there's women from other parts of the world that their family is ashamed of them when they get raped. So they actually sometimes will kill the woman because they were raped. So there's a whole different extremes about how you're being taught. And Chanel Miller, she was the rape survivor of the Stanford swimmer, Brock Turner. She's genius, by the way. Everyone should read her book. But she was saying that the worst trauma from sexual trauma comes from what happens after the trauma. Not believing you, blaming you for things, not having resources, feeling alone, all the things. She's like, that was the worst part. It was re-traumatization. And so again, going against what we believe as a culture with those things and really changing them. I will say that I've been seeing a lot of things lately about people who have never been trained in trauma, trying to treat trauma. I worked in pediatric psychiatry and have a trauma background. I know how to do trauma-informed care. I know how to do motivational interviewing to make sure I don't re-traumatize. I'm not trained in psychotherapy. I will not engage in psychotherapy with people with sexual trauma because the re-traumatization is so high. And it's such a hard thing to navigate. So make sure you have a professional who knows what they're doing. Psychotherapy.
Talking about it doesn't make it better.
Right. And you can talk to people about it. And that's kind of what I do, right? Is like talk to people about it and know how to respond to them. But when we're doing psychotherapy, get into the nitty gritty, you really need a psychotherapist. Go to someone that's been trained. I really want to encourage people to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you for letting us know about that. It's a very sensitive subject and affects so many people, from maybe most minor offense to the most major.
Yeah.
It all counts.
Yeah.
It all counts. And definitely talking about it and not protecting the people who did it to you.
So hard, though. It's so hard. I was a victim's advocate in undergrad, and sometimes I get it. Why you don't want to go to court, because that is part of the re-traumatization, you know? And so
to repeat it over and over to strangers.
No one believes you. Everyone's calling you whatever. It's just, honestly, we need a different way to handle it. I don't know the answers, but I think we can all agree that we need a different way to handle it. It's very challenging. And we see a lot of sexual pain disorders with people who have had sexual trauma, vaginismus, or like vulvodynia, just pain on your vulva. And a lot of those are from sexual trauma as well. I think it's a defense mechanism.
100%. Yeah, your body's really good at shutting down, right, when something's not supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit on why does society, and by society I mean men, but as a result women too.
Yeah, we are a whole.
Why are women split up into two groups, the hoe and the prude, the good girl? Like, where did that come from? Why can't you flow in and out, So
Yeah,
why are we seen like this?
This is like hundreds and thousands of years ago. Like maybe not thousands, maybe hundreds. Even up to the point where marriage was first created to benefit society in some way. I think honestly, it's a way to shame women. And really, shame is the best way to put someone in their place. The best way, because they don't want to speak about it. So you're very isolated, and it changes a lot of your behavior. And we've known that forever. I was just talking to someone about your hymen and how women are killed because they don't bleed on their wedding night, which is not even true. I've never bled. I never bled as a kid. I never bled in sex.
Also, let's just use our brains a little bit here. How would you have a period that can get out of your body if there's a blockage covering your vagina?
Exactly.
You have to get that medically cut and removed if that's something you're born with.
Exactly.
Such an insane.
It's just, so where did that come from, right? All these things come back in time. And I also think humans, we like to have categories. We like to have boxes
because it's to organize.
Yes, because it's a confusing world, so we like to be able to do that. So I think that really helps people put them into categories. I was just talking to someone the other day about how on a first date or third date or whenever you have sex, even if you want to have sex, but you like this person, you're like, should I not have sex? Because are they going to think I'm a hoe? Are they going to put me in that box so they don't want to have a relationship with me? And those things, it's still something that people navigate, And on the opposite though as well, this is funny that this topic came up because it's been coming up to me lately all the time. But this guy asked me, I think he's probably in his low 30s. And he's like, women keep asking me like what my body count is, and
which a dreaded question.
What's a good answer?
Well, are you going to assign my worth to a number? Half of those people could have been a mistake, or maybe not even your own choice. Yeah. So it's like, and I hate that question. I hate it so much. I feel so bad when like my girlfriends are navigating that.
Yeah,
it's like this guy, like he doesn't believe me, and this, and I'm just like. The first issue is that he asked you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess women are asking now too. They want to know, is this dude a hoe? Is he a player?
Too. Once you have that number in your head, that's all you can think about.
Right. And that's what I always ask you. What would be a perfect number for you?
Right.
Then. Because people are like, well, you haven't had sex with enough people and I want someone more experienced, or you've had sex with too many people. And also, just because you have a high or low number of sex doesn't mean that you're good or bad at sex.
Right.
You could be with someone, honestly, I think the person that's had, maybe the lowest sexual partners for a long time probably are better at sex than the people who've had 100 one-night stands, right?
That's 100%
so
the right point.
It's not about that number. I just don't know why everyone cared so much.
Yeah, no, I get it. We already kind of talked about how birth control affects female sexuality, but I think we also know with recent research that birth control is known to lower your desire. Do you see a lot of women struggling with that? Which is such a paradox because you're on this birth control so you can have all the sex. You don't worry about being pregnant, but then you don't even want to have the sex.
Yes. Yeah, I know, right? That's actually kind of probably, it's been an argument for actually a reason why it works. So yeah, we used to think, let's just talk about like the oral contraceptive pill, not the mini pill. So the one that has estradiol, so estrogen, and progesterone.
For a reminder, for those of you who don't know, those are not human hormones. They're synthesized versions of hormones.
But they act on the body the same way the hormones do. Yes. So we used to think that doing the lowest dosage of hormones, actually kind of we're still in it, of like no hormones, and everyone has their opinion about whether they like hormones or don't like hormones or whatever, right? Boxes, good, bad. So we used to think lowest amount of hormones or whatever. But now I was just at a conference, female sexual medicine conference, and Tammy Rowan, she's a doctor in San Francisco. She's like the queen of birth control and sex drive. So everyone look up her stuff. But a lot of the stuff that's coming out now is like, no matter what dose you're on, you're taking over the entire system. Your body is recognizing it. And so it doesn't make any more. And so we used to think, okay, lowest amount of hormones and your body's going to like do the rest. At least we have some natural. Now we're finding out it's not true. And so to combat that, we want the highest amount of estrogen in an oral pill because it's taking over the whole system. So increasing the estrogen as much as possible. Also, when you increase the estrogen as much as possible, you're talking about more acne sometimes. So picking a birth control is basically what symptoms would you like to avoid? And that's how we pick a birth control. I will say birth control right now is getting a bad rap. And I would probably argue that this is one of the worst times that birth control could get a bad rap. We're starting to see teen pregnancy go up. I mean, obviously there's other things going on.
And you know what? I'll say whatever about birth control. Obviously, I'm an advocate for alternative methods.
Of course.
You don't want to be on it because I know that when I was on it, it made me someone who I was not. I was a monster.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I can totally see that, hey, maybe it would be better for the teenagers to use that while their frontal lobes aren't developed. They're not making good decisions.
No.
We don't want any teenage pregnancies if we can avoid it.
Yeah.
Because most people, not that there's anything wrong with that, but what the main thing that is wrong with that is that they're not equipped to take care of a human life. And then I think once you get your frontal lobe developed and you do want to see what you feel like with off the birth control, definitely go off that if that's what you want to see. But then you're more mature to have the foresight and the education and knowledge of how you can avoid pregnancy and also try to recalibrate your health and figure out what was wrong with your period in the first place.
Right. So again, birth control is individualized for every single person. And even if you're a teen and you're getting really bad responses to it, also those teens that try different birth controls and they're having crazy response, they're also a lot more invested in their care because they keep having to go back, which is not a great thing, right? Yeah. But they're invested in their care a little bit. So they're kind of hopefully getting educated while
they're in there.
Right. Understanding why we take birth control. What are the other options, right? And so, yeah, it's so individual based. I'm seeing so many women in their 20s and 30s pregnant that don't want to be pregnant because we think, oh, let's track my cycle and then use pull-up method. And I mean, everyone has their opinion, but tracking your cycle and pull-up method, let me know how that's working out for you.
Right.
If you're in a place where you're like, I could probably get pregnant and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, great, do it. But if it's like, oh my God, no, this would literally ruin my life, maybe not play with fire.
Exactly. There's still, even with all the birth controls that are available, there's still a tiny % chance that you could still, like, I've had multiple aunts, sorry guys, I won't name you, but I had multiple aunts get pregnant while they were actively on birth control. So it can still happen.
Yeah, it's a problem. They're all coming out with 2 male birth controls that are in human trials right now.
Well, and I heard that they're going to get anesthesia approved for them too while they get it inserted or whatever. Like there's a male IUD, and of course that they would do that for the guys because women never get any kind of anesthesia for their, I mean, you've had IUD, right? So you know how crazy it was.
Literally worst thing ever. I mean, I haven't had a baby, so
nothing to compare it to. But still the worst thing that you've ever
yeah.
Taylor, what are your goals for the future as you become a sexologist and you're finishing up school?
So I'm done with school in December. And then hopefully start working as a medical sexologist. Shout out Goldsteins, hire me. They have a practice here, the Goldsteins, and they're just world renowned in sexual medicine. So would love to eventually get hired by them. But I am going to start studying under Stephanie Bueller. Are we ever done with school?
No.
So
it's for life.
Yeah. So Stephanie Bueller, she's a psychosexologist in Orange County in Newport. And she does ASEX certification. So it's basically what we're doing because there's no direct route to be a sexologist. We're working on it. So you can get certified there. So that's a 2-year program, but I would be working while I do that. And then my speaking, I just love speaking. I love teaching. So right now I'm doing seminars at universities, primarily at sororities and fraternities, but I've also done sexual health events and things. So I love it. The college kids, they're adults.
They're kids.
They're young adults. They're kids.
They're children.
I know. They are so fun, and I would love to get after them younger. Predatory.
No, but it's important. I think it's worse for the kids who don't get any sort of education around this.
Yeah. Going younger than 18, not a camp.
By the way, I was shamed in school too, in elementary school, because I would draw naked people. And one time my teacher came over with a grocery bag full of my drawings, and my parents were so embarrassed. But I didn't find anything wrong with it. No, being gross or perverted. I was obsessed with anatomy, and look what I'm doing now.
Yeah, like, exactly.
It's all about the cycle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And seriously, that stuff starts young. That's why you were saying penis in kindergarten.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so I want to do a lot with my speaking. I haven't released it publicly, but I will now because we're going to do it this week. But I haven't figured out exactly what we're doing with comedians comedians, and I'm going to be at Mic Drop Comedy Club August 11th at 7 p.m. So we're putting on a show there. I have vibrator companies coming, loop companies. It's going to be a whole sex comedy event. I'm very excited. And then also I really want to get back into, I have my nonprofit, and basically what we do there is I'm able to do my sex ed through that. But our biggest project is helping women and children in Thailand out of the survival sex industry. So we have families that we support, and we're supporting education, but our kids are really starting to grow up, and we're going to have to start thinking about college for them soon. So really, after I graduate, I really want to focus more on that because it's kind of been put on the back burner. But doing more fundraising events. I love doing the fundraising events. They're so fun. It's a great way to educate people and really support their education in Thailand. And so, I just have so many things I want to do. And so I want to get back to my events. They're so fun. They're so fun.
You definitely thrive at events.
Yeah.
I was very drawn to your energy, book club. And then to finish off the show, thank you so much for everything you've shared with us so far.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. I just wanted to ask you, are there any tangible tips that you can leave our listeners with that they can start to apply today for a healthier sex life?
Yes, I will say two things. One, understanding your desire. So I'll just drop a book, but Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. She is awesome. She really does a good job of explaining this in her book. It's kind of a hard thing to explain, and I think she does a good job. So one, understanding your desire is helpful, so you don't think, why am I just covering the mood or whatever, really starting to understand your body. And then number two is learn how to communicate your wants and needs outside of the bedroom before you get into the bedroom. So one of the things that I talked to the sorority girls about is, I noticed about me, this was years ago, but women, we don't want to ask. We don't feel like we can't ask for what we want. It's a big problem for the wage gap, actually. But I realized that I was at Starbucks or whatever, and they would get my drink wrong, and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to correct them. I don't want to bother them. I don't really care. And so then when I really started learning more about communication in the bedroom, I'm like, how am I going to ask for what I want in a heightened emotional setting, a vulnerable setting, if I can't even ask them to change my drink at Starbucks, right? Really practicing, and that builds confidence and self-esteem, which is really important. So trying to communicate outside of the bedroom so then you can slowly work up to it, because communicating inside the bedroom for some people is very difficult, and you got to start small and work your way up.
Okay. That's a good tip.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to promote as of right now?
My show that I already did.
What's it called?
I haven't. I'm not going to say it yet.
Okay.
I actually just decided this week, but I just want to make sure that's
right.
I'm going to keep it. But it's at Mic Drop Comedy Club. Okay. Yes. And if anyone knows any comedians that they are like, this would be great. I'm still looking. I have a lot in the bag, but I really want someone that's like, it speaks to me, you know?
Okay. August 11th. So when we have things to post about it, we will promote it.
Yes. So we're the whole event.
Okay. Well, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah.
I want to reach out to you, DM you.
Yeah. So Instagram, I am Taylor Stafford. I don't really use other social media platforms at the moment, but also you can go to my website, womenagainsttaboo.org, send me an email through there. We also have other volunteering opportunities that we can do that we have offered every once in a while. So if you are interested in volunteering, and then reach out to me if you're in undergrad. If you're interested in this seminar, reach out to me. Also just reach out to me if you have any questions. I like to work for free these days, so.
It's a form of love. It really is. Work is the highest form of love, whether or not you get paid for it.
Yeah.
If you can make a change in someone's life,
I love it.
You've done it.
Yeah. So my door is always open.
6 hours.
Yeah, for office hours with Taylor.
Getting your PhD?
It's a doctorate. So there's two different nursing routes. So PhD is strictly research. Doctorate is clinic and research.
Okay. So, wow. You can go, girl. That's incredible.
Thank you.
School is
so close. School is hard. We're getting by. Thank you for having me.
Again, you guys can find her at I am Taylor Stafford on Instagram, and also her website, womenagainsttaboo.org.
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye. As always, I want to remind you guys to follow us on Instagram at Stellar Cycles Pod. Be sure to download that free grocery guide that I have for you where you can pick out foods based on the phase that you're in at your cycle to best support your hormones and your energy levels. I would love it if you guys would leave a star rating and a review if you're enjoying this podcast, if it's helped you out. I love to read the reviews that you guys leave. Until then, spread the good word about stellar cycles to your fellow women, and let's all elevate our lives, cycles, and dreams together. Till next time, Stellar Cycles out.